Hey folks, the Zone here. Manchester United escape with victory versus 10-man Nottingham Forest. So there'll be loads of channels with toxic fan positivity, as I like to call it. And there's a lot of this at Manchester United these days. And it's basically just stick by the manager, stick by the player, and all will come good. But we know that to be not true because as Manchester United fans, we're probably the most lenient on players and managers. People will then say, oh, but you sacked Point is, pressure doesn't really build on the manager. It's just ultimately ends up if they don't get top four, they get fired. There's never any like fan outcry. There's never really anything. Players don't really get too much stick compared to like, say, a Real Madrid or anything like that. We're very, very lenient, but the toxic Man United fans will have you believe we're very unlenient. Now, this game as a whole is a 2 out of 10. That's it, isn't it? It's a 2 out of 10. That's the only fair assumption you can give. People will say, oh, brilliant comeback, desire. That's what champions are made of. No. This was a horrific game filled with horrific playing, horrific management, and just theme after theme after theme that we keep seeing crop up. Now, I will hold my hands up and say everything changes if the Glazers leave because the Glazers never give the manager the players they want. Okay, but certain managers are okay with that and they become puppets and they just say, oh, my squad's brilliant. What we've got to do is wake up here and realize that it's a disgraceful result, no matter which way you look at it. And when you think of, say, Jose saying stuff like, I'd like to have more players, but I don't think I'm going to get any more. I gave a list of 5 players who interest me. I don't think I'll get one. Now, whether you like Jose Mourinho or not, he was probably the only manager that didn't puppet and ended up being sacked and hated because he spoke the truth with his football heritage rant. Now, the question is, what are we doing at this club in the transfer window to solve this mess? Probably nothing. But what are we doing on the pitch? What are we doing on the pitch to actually change results and make things better? Because currently I'm not seeing anything. I'm not. That match, dress it up however you want, give people ratings and results, whatever you want. It was awful. We're talking about we need a modern goalkeeper to be proactive. We're talking about we want a high press midfield with energy. We have Sancho, Rashford, Martial providing no energy. We have Onana, who was very, very poor today. I don't care what you say. He was very poor. Now, you can say it's nerves. You can say he's settling in. It took David De Gea time to settle in. But the fact is, it wasn't a good performance by him, right? And we blew a load of money on him. Now, I personally am happy because I didn't rate De Gea all that much. But the point is, we are being sold this dream of modern proactive football. And the reality is, if you just wake up, Man United fans, the reality is bringing on Scott McTominay to desperately hold on versus 10 men to Nottingham Forest at home. So regardless of how you dress it up, it's not great management. We have Maguire he wants to sell. Okay. So if you're Maguire, you're thinking the manager's doesn't rate me. I'm not in his plans. And he puts me on the bench twice. I might actually get game time this season. Now that Varane's injured as well, I'll probably get some game time. You've got Scott McTominay thinking, well, Maguire's getting on the bench and he wants to be sold. And now I've been played. I'll stay. It's going to be very difficult to get rid of these players when the manager isn't booting them out. The manager can boot them out. You might say, well, that's no good because our squad will be weaker. But you've got to break a few eggs to make an omelette, as they say. And we're not going to make a great team by pandering around players that shouldn't be here and aren't good enough, right? I think today, what was he thinking when he put Eriksen next to Casemiro? I thought, we've got a guy with a pacemaker, unfortunately. He can't run. He's got no physicality. That's why we wanted him replaced at the end of last season. And here we are, when we kick off immediately he's in the penalty box and Casemiro is on his own again. And I'm thinking, okay, you've changed the personnel, Ten Hag, but the system's the same. We're getting completely ran through. We got completely got ran through in the first few games of last season. Not much is changing, okay? But I'll move on from Ten Hag because it is hands behind your back, can't do much with the dross that he's given because we're after players like Johnny fucking Evans, who we sold, and we're after Bertrand. We're Man United, mate. We're Man United. We're meant to be laden with world-class players. And I'm sat watching Brighton, who play better than us. Have Brighton got a bigger budget? No. They're a more well-run football club. That's the thing here. It doesn't matter what players you get rid of or what manager you get rid of. The end result will be some shit comes in because no one's managing the club correctly. That's the point. So until the Glazers go, it's pointless thinking about Man United doing anything. Now, there should be no positivity from this performance because there wasn't. Let's look at the players, okay, that performed today. And that's all I'm going to talk about because we can talk about players getting ran past. We can talk about a few moments here and there, but it was desperate stuff against a poor team, and any other better team would have finished us off. So let's run through it. Martial, horrific. There's no dressing it up. Horrific, man. We've got this person here scoring, James Ward-Prowse. James Ward-Prowse as a midfielder to sit next to Casemiro is a better signing than Mason Mount. Or anyway, the point is, Maddison is we're not picking the right players. Anyway, right, Martial can't sprint, can't run, can't press, can't tackle. He's been here years and years and years and years, and he needs to go. I'm giving him a 1. I'm giving him a 1 simply because he put his foot on the pitch, so he gets a 1. He didn't do anything today. Anthony, you might say, oh, he looked bright. He sort of went past a few people a couple of times. 2. He gets a 2 out of 10 because he did the bare minimum and everything else was poor. He's beginning to piss me off. Dalot. People think Dalot is star boy. Honestly, hand on heart, what top Premier League club would take Dalot? He can't cross, he can't attack, he can't defend. And now he's playing on the wrong side. He gets a 1. He was awful. Onana gets a 1. He was awful. Martinez gets a 1. Offered nothing. There was no proactive ball playing, which is what he's been purchased for. There was no commanding defence. He was rolling around. He was sliding in. He's rash. He looks unfit. Varane, I'm giving Varane a 7. I'm fair in my results. Varane played really, really well today. Okay, you might say, well, he let in 2 goals. The 2 goals were barely his fault, I'll be completely honest. The first one, Rashford, I don't know where anyone was, but Rashford just gave up running after him. And Varane was solid today, but he's a crock. He's a complete crock. He gets permanently injured, and he's not good enough for Man United. You'll say, what? You've given him a 7? And you're saying he's not good enough for Man United and he's a crock, but he's won 4 Champions League. This guy doesn't make no sense. I make complete sense. At Real Madrid, he needed a leader beside him. We don't have a leader beside him. He can't handle the rigour of the Premier League. He's already retired from the French team to try survive in the Premier League, and he still can't do it. And if I'm Man United and I was serious and we had serious owners, I'd have been buying Kim. I'd have been buying a proper centre-back, the one that can handle the Premier League. So you play Varane when you can play him, but you can't build partnerships or titles on him because he won't be there. Bruno, I'm going to give him a 3. He consistently tried. He was slightly less pedantic today. But you've got to ask yourself, guys, and be honest. He's the captain of Manchester United, and he seems to be on the results of some proper drubbings. I think it was 6-1. And the quote that always sticks with me was, well, I scored a penalty. Does that not count? You lost 6-1, mate. Forget your penalty. He was hammered by City multiple times. He was in that 6-2 City game. He was in the 7-0 Liverpool game. And today, he immediately goes 2-0 down. And you might say, well, it's not his fault. He's a consistent factor and he's the captain. When you let in that ridiculous early goal, you've got to wake everybody up. We didn't. We conceded again. And it took him a good 60 minutes, I felt like, to wake up into the game. And yeah, he was a bright spark and he probably dragged us through it. But I didn't think he was good, I'll be honest. Casemiro, he huffed and he puffed and he got a goal. And I'll say he was on par with... He probably wasn't even on par with Bruno. But he was no better, and he certainly wasn't. It wasn't miles worse. So you could argue he gets a 3. Rashford, I just feel like he had a few moments of magic, but he's looking like that player that doesn't want to tackle. He don't want to run. He's nagging his opponents and he's nagging at his teammates, and every time something goes wrong, he's like, "Oh, I got fouled. Oh, this happened, that happened." He's not looking good. I'm going to give him a 3 just because, again, he was involved. Wan-Bissaka, I'm going to give a 5, maybe even a 6, to be honest. I think he was solid. And I think he was the only person you could really pass the ball to who kept hold of it and actually drove forward a little bit. And it's a bit strange to say that because he let in 2 goals and it wasn't brilliant attacking and it wasn't brilliant defending. But I felt secure when he had the ball. Eriksen, I thought, was just pointless. He gets a 1. Lindelof, I thought, was probably a solid addition. I think he was probably up there with Varane as a 7, because when he came on, he didn't really put a foot wrong and he looked quite commanding. McTominay gets a 2. He came on, he had some like rolls around, he booted somebody in the head, he shouldn't even be at the club. And Sancho gets a 1. Sancho gets a 1 because, to me, he's meant to be the star signing and he's meant to be winning his place. Whether it's on the right wing, left wing, number 10, or striker, or false 9, whatever. And he just doesn't look like he's physical or he has the desire to be bothered. He's neat, he's tidy, he has some okay touches, but if you were to really sum up Sancho, at the last minute, we're desperately holding on and the ball goes up to him and I'm thinking, just hold on to it. He couldn't shield it. He couldn't go down. He couldn't buy a free kick. He couldn't fight back. He couldn't tackle. He couldn't wrestle. He just stood there and they pinched the ball off him and then they went for one final attack. I don't like him as a player. He doesn't fit what I like about. I like the old style, what you would call sort of like the invincible Arsenal team, the strong, powerful footballers, your Keanes, your Giggses, you've got your Vieiras, you've got, even today, you've got Haalands, you've got Walkers, all City's players, you'll notice the big, tall, strong lads that can run, they're athletic. Ours are looking weak out there. They're looking weak. And this team is not going to do anything, right? It's not going to do anything. You're struggling to Wolves, you're struggling to Forest, you're losing to Tottenham. We might go and get a makeshift signing. We might improve a little bit. But Manchester United is about winning titles. And this is why I'm harsh. And if you think I'm being harsh or unfair or reactionary, whatever, Manchester United is about winning titles, FA Cups, Champions Leagues, right? We're a mile off. We're a country mile off doing any of those things. Now, you can blame the ownership, you can blame the players, you can blame the manager. It doesn't really matter. It's not Ten Hag out. It's not all the players out. But it is the Glazers out. And it is get some people in that actually have a spine and will bench players if they need to be benched and get proper substitutes in. Because look, like I say, Ten Hag's got his hands behind his back. He's not void of all criticism because he's been hammered loads. He hasn't even won an away game versus the top 9, right? He's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but there should be zero. I'm telling you, if you to sum up this video, there should be zero positivity about that match. Zero. And if any creators are doing positivity around that, it makes no sense. They've got some sort of agenda, whether they like a player or they dislike a certain player or whatever. They must have an agenda, because no real Man United fan that has grown up, and I've watched them for 30 plus years, no Man United fan can watch that performance and honestly think to themselves, yeah, that was a blip. Our team's good enough. and we're going to kick on, and we're going to have a really strong, brilliant season. And then at the end of the season, we'll come out with some trophies, maybe a title, maybe a Champions League, and then we'll go and invest and we'll improve again. It's never happening. Whether it's the Glazers, whether it's Ten Hag, whether it's the players, there are certain players there, like Martial, like Luke Shaw, probably even becoming Varane. There are players that are permanently injured that can't quite do it. And whether you like them or whether you don't, they're a waste of money. That's what they are. They're a waste of money. You're paying billions in wages over the course of these contracts. And if they're not available, they're pointless. And if they don't put effort in, they're pointless. There's nothing positive about that. There isn't. There's nothing positive.